As a leader, is there a conversation you're dreading having with a team member, or maybe even actively avoiding it because you know it's going to be so uncomfortable? Are you just putting it off, even though you know you need to have this conversation?
Yeah, I see this so often with clients where even when the situation is quite small, it's uncomfortable, so they delay it. And sometimes those things, those small things, become really big things. They become patterns of behavior that become untenable. I'm Tara Collison, founder of Medlars, an executive development firm that focuses on helping leaders explore and express their highest potential.
And I'm Deborah Holstein. I've got over 15 years hands-on experience leading high-performing teams. Tara and I share pragmatic, on-the-ground advice, tools, and frameworks that address some of the most pressing problems you face as leaders every single day.
So, back to having a hard conversation. When you
Mhm.
know you need to have one, just think about how can you engage in that conversation in a way that allows the other person to be at their best. This means not surprising them. You want to find a time in which they can lean in and have the conversation. And I like to think about who the person is when you're prepping for that. So for example, if someone's more introverted, they're going to need some time to think about it. You don't want to surprise them with it by just putting it on a one-on-one agenda. However, if someone's really sensitive or they tend to respond really strongly to things, you want to make sure that you don't make a big deal of it and put a separate meeting on their calendar where they're going to stress out about it for 20 days about like, what is this really about? And never wait 20 days, by the way. But, but even
Like the next morning, I gotcha.
couple of hours could be stressful for some people. You
Mhm.
just want to think about how do you get them engaged in the conversation in a way that you guys can move through it quickly and make it not a big deal.
And because it's your meeting and it's on you to sort of create the environment that is going to make them most receptive to what you need to say. So you can't bring your baggage and your shit in there. Like you have to leave that at the door. If you're feeling upset, if you're feeling triggered, if you can't go into the meeting with that as your mindset. So you want to set an intention for the meeting based on the outcome that you want, which is this shared understanding. And think about the tone of the meeting that you want, because what you say and how you say it is going to be what sets that tone all the way throughout. And the more that you can link what you're trying to say to what your team member is trying to achieve, their goals and development, the more likely it is that they are going to want to listen to you.
That's right. And if you can also link it to the goals of the organization, and so you just create this like everyone wins kind of environment. Sometimes during these conversations, getting to the win requires a little bit of navigation. And you do need to steer the conversation. Some common things that you might want to be prepared for going into this kind of conversation is if it gets emotional, what do you do? One of the things that I see that works really well is just acknowledge that you can tell it's very important to the person. You don't tell them what they're feeling or anything like that. You just say, I can see this is really important to you. What's coming up for you right now? Tell me a little bit more about that. If they get to a part of the conversation where they're talking about things that you're unaware of, you find it confusing, or even you can tell they're getting a little adversarial about things. So things are kind of going awry and you're like, I don't know what's going on here. You can just pause, ask them to sort of tell you a little bit more, or even repeat what you're hearing. I'm hearing you say this, and I'm having trouble drawing this connection. Can you help me out with that? And if you do it in this way, what you're doing is inviting them into the conversation so they can get everything out. And that getting everything out is the building blocks to the path forward. So
Yeah.
help navigating, be with them in that part of the conversation.
Yeah, because you think going into this, you've done your prep, but you think but you don't know. You
That's right.
truly, truly do not know what's going on in somebody's head, and what their experience is until you are asking for it and having that conversation. But what's important is that you keep kind of bringing it back. And at the end of it, you want to make sure both of you guys are at the same place, right? That you understand where you're at, what the development opportunity is, and how you're going to be watching that over time. And I find too, like you want to reinforce that positive behavior that they were actually engaging with this feedback and engaging in this conversation, this difficult conversation in the right way. it's perfectly okay to thank them for it, right? Reinforce those kinds of things and normalize coaching and development conversations. Because now that you've had this first one, you can continue to talk about it as a normal agenda item in your weekly one-on-ones, and it stops being this thing that's happening over here and just starts to be part of the day-to-day.
Absolutely. And then that invites open the next step, which is like, how do you help them as a leader? Or how do you set up the conditions for success? After all, that is part of your role in all of this. So, having difficult conversations with your team isn't just limited to how do I help you be better? How do I help you grow? You have to have these conversations with other stakeholders as well, with your peers, especially the more senior you get in an organization, with your cross functional stakeholders and partner organizations, or even customers, right?
Mhm.
And one of the more important ones, and ones that's more difficult, is when there's a power dynamic that is the opposite, where you need to have a conversation with a senior leader or your boss. And so we're going to come back and have another conversation about how do you handle it when the chair is flipped and you need to have a difficult conversation with somebody that holds the power or control in a situation.
Power dynamic is real. Okay. So we always want to hear from you guys. So please tell us about the approaches that you have for hard conversations. And also let us know if there's other situations that you want us to cover. Have a great rest of your day.